Do you want to improve your English listening skills and hear some fun stories about animals at the same time? Well, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going on a few little adventures, from a hilarious day at the zoo to a sweet moment with a stray cat. It's a fun, entertaining way to pick up new vocabulary and test your comprehension. These stories are designed to help you just relax and let the English sink in naturally. We'll tell each story in parts, and after each part, we'll break down a few new words. Let's get started with our first animal encounter. Our first story kicks off on a warm, sunny afternoon at the city zoo. My friend and I were so excited to see all the different animals. Our first stop? The monkey enclosure. It was this huge open area with plenty of trees to climb and ropes to swing on. Dozens of little monkeys were everywhere, chasing each other, playing, and making a ton of noise. They were just bursting with energy. One monkey, though, really caught our eye. He was sitting way up on a high branch, just watching a zookeeper who was cleaning nearby. The zookeeper had a small cart with fruit on it, including a big, bright yellow mango. This one monkey seemed totally fascinated by that mango. He was staring at it with this incredibly mischievous look in his eyes. He waited for just the right moment, and when the zookeeper turned his back, the monkey zipped down the tree, grabbed the mango, and shot right back up before anyone even noticed. He was so clever and unbelievably fast. All right, let's look at a couple of words from that part of the story. First up, we have enclosure. An enclosure is simply a space that's closed off by a fence or a wall. At a zoo, it's the area where the animals live. For example, you might say, the lions were relaxing in their large grassy enclosure. Our next word is mischievous. This word is perfect for the monkey. Mischievous means you enjoy causing a bit of trouble, but in a playful way. The monkey wasn't trying to be mean, he was just being a little naughty and having fun. You could say, my friend's young son has a very mischievous smile. Finally, there's the word clever. Clever means you're quick to understand, learn, and come up with ideas. That monkey definitely had a smart plan to get the mango. For instance, she was clever enough to figure out the difficult puzzle. So let's get back to our zoo story. After watching all the monkey business, we walked over to the lion enclosure. The vibe here was completely different. Inside this huge area that was designed to look like an African savanna, two enormous lions were just resting. One was a male with a magnificent dark brown mane, and the other was a female. They weren't running or playing at all. Instead, they were just stretched out in the warm sun, looking so sleepy. The sign in their enclosure explained that lions can sleep for up to 20 hours a day to save up their energy. They usually prowl and hunt at night when it's cooler, so for most of the afternoon, these powerful animals would just doze in the sun. Every once in a while, one would crack open an eye to look at the visitors before falling right back to sleep. It was amazing to see such majestic creatures up close, even if they weren't doing much. Let's break down the new words from this section. Our first word is majestic. Majestic means something has impressive beauty and dignity. It's a fantastic word for a royal-looking animal like a lion. For example, we saw a majestic eagle soaring over the mountains. Next is prowl. To prowl is to move around a place quietly and secretly, trying not to be seen, often when hunting. For example, you could say, the cat likes to prowl around the garden at night. And our last word for this story is doze. To doze just means to sleep lightly or to be half asleep. It's not that deep, heavy sleep. You might say, my grandfather sometimes likes to doze in his armchair after lunch. All right, our second story is a personal one about my goofy dog, a golden retriever named Buddy. For about a month, something really weird was happening in my house. My socks kept disappearing. At first, I just thought I was losing them in the laundry, but it kept happening. One sock from each pair would just vanish. I looked absolutely everywhere, but I couldn't find them. I started to suspect the culprit was living in my own house. My main suspect? Buddy. He loved carrying things around in his mouth, but I'd never actually seen him take a sock. He was being very sneaky. I decided I had to get to the bottom of this. I needed to find his secret hoard of stolen socks and solve the mystery. Let's review the vocabulary from that part of the story. Our first word is vanish. To vanish means to disappear suddenly and completely. For example, the magician made the rabbit vanish from his hat. Next up, culprit. The culprit is the person, or in this case, the animal, responsible for a problem or a crime. In my story, the culprit was my dog, Buddy. For instance, the police identified the main culprit behind the robbery. And our third word is hoard. A hoard is a collection of money or valuable things, usually one that's kept secret or guarded carefully. You could say the squirrel had a hoard of nuts hidden away for the winter. All right, now back to the mystery. One Saturday morning, I decided that I was going to follow Buddy. I just pretended I wasn't watching him. After a little while, he trotted into my bedroom, looked around to make sure the coast was clear, and then gently took a sock from the laundry basket. This was the evidence I needed. He quietly carried the sock out to the living room, went right behind the big sofa, and shoved his head underneath it. I went over to look, and there it was, his secret treasure. There were at least 10 of my missing socks all together in a little pile. He looked up at me with this incredibly guilty expression on his face, like he knew he'd been caught. I couldn't even be mad. It was just too funny. It seems he just loved my scent and wanted to keep a collection of things that smelled like me. Do you have a pet that does funny things? Tell us about it in the comments below. We'd absolutely love to read your stories. Now, let's learn the last few words from the story. The first word is evidence. Evidence is just information or signs that prove something is true. Catching my dog with the sock was all the evidence I needed. For example, the detective found evidence that solved the crime. Next is guilty. Guilty is that feeling you get when you know you've done something wrong. Buddy's face showed he felt totally guilty. You could say she felt guilty for eating the last piece of cake. Our last word here is treasure. A treasure is a collection of valuable things like gold or gems. But for my dog, those smelly socks were his own personal treasure. For example, the pirates searched for buried treasure on the island. For our final story, we have an encounter with a wild animal. One evening, a huge thunderstorm rolled in. The wind was howling and heavy rain was slamming against my windows. As I was sitting in my living room, I saw a little flash of movement in my garden. I looked closer and was startled to see a small fox. The poor thing was completely soaked from the rain and looked terrified. It was hiding under a big bush, trying to find some shelter from the storm. It looked so small and vulnerable out there all alone. I knew I couldn't get too close since it was a wild animal, but I really wanted to help. Let's pause here and look at our new words. The first word is startled. To be startled means to feel a sudden shock or alarm. For example, I was startled by the loud clap of thunder. Next is shelter. A shelter is a place that gives you protection from bad weather or danger. The fox was looking for shelter from the storm. For instance, we found shelter from the sun under a big tree. Our last word in this group is vulnerable. To be vulnerable means to be weak and easy to hurt, either physically or emotionally. You could say baby birds are very vulnerable before they learn to fly. All right, let's finish our story about the fox. Remembering the advice to keep a safe distance, I decided to leave some cat food and a bowl of fresh water on my back patio, close to the bush. Then I went back inside to watch from the window. After a few minutes, the fox cautiously peeked out from under the bush. It looked around very carefully, then quickly ran over, ate the food, and drank some water. I felt so relieved to see it eat. The fox stayed under that bush until the storm finally passed. Once the rain stopped and the sky started to clear, the fox looked around one last time, then quickly scampered out of the garden and disappeared into the night. It was a simple thing to do, but I felt so happy that I could offer a little comfort to a wild creature on such a stormy night. Let's learn our final 3 words. Our first word is cautiously. To do something cautiously means you do it in a very careful way to avoid any danger or mistakes. For example, he cautiously walked across the icy street. Next is relieved. To feel relieved is to feel happy because something unpleasant is over or didn't happen. I was so relieved when I knew the fox was safe and had eaten. For instance, I was so relieved to find my lost keys. And our final word is scamper. To scamper means to run with quick, light steps, usually out of excitement or fear. It's a word we often use for small animals. You could say, the mice scampered away when the cat entered the room. Great job today. We listened to 3 very different stories about animals: the clever monkeys at the zoo, the dog who was a sock thief, and the brave little fox who weathered a storm. And think about all the new vocabulary we covered: enclosure, mischievous, clever, majestic, prowl, doze, vanish, culprit, hoard, evidence, guilty, treasure, startled, shelter, vulnerable, cautiously, relieved, and scamper. That's 18 new words. Try to practice using a few of them this week. Listening to stories like these is a fantastic way to boost your English. You are doing great work just by showing up and practicing. Keep going and don't give up. Every time you listen, you're getting